Welcome to the Cockney Guide to Enlightenment podcast. My name's Stephen Rosen, and in this podcast we go beneath the surface of people's lives to find out what makes them tick. My own life I wrote about in this book, Lost in the Babylon. It's through childhood adversity, organised crime and a successful life as a businessman in the city. When I talk to people, we go beneath the surface of where they got to in their lives and we find out what really makes them tick. So if you want to follow me, connect to me with social media at Cockney Profit. And if you enjoy this podcast, please like it, subscribe or follow us and enjoy the episode. Welcome to the Cockney Guide to Enlightenment podcast with me, Stephen Rosen, and my guest today is Tom Sloan. Tom, how you doing?
Very well, thank you, Steve.
It's great to have you on, Tom.
Thank you very much. It's been a while.
Yeah, we've been trying to connect and get the schedule right. It's been up and down, but I think it always comes at the right time.
Yes, yeah, it works out well. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, pleasure. And just how we normally start, I normally obviously introduce you and then just you kind of tell us a bit about where you come from. I mean, I know that you've got a very, very interesting background, but if you speak a bit about where you come, your family, growing up, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, great. Yeah. So, do you want me to do that now?
Yeah, you just take it away. You've got no script.
So, I think we met probably four months ago.
Yeah.
I think over a coffee, and we had a chat. A friend of a friend sitting there, and we had a connection straight away. I'm Scottish Irish. Settled in the UK in '76, the summer of '76. I was 4.5 when I moved from Glasgow. I was from Govan. I always say the cats beat up the dogs where we lived. But we had an amazing childhood. I moved down here with my parents and my 4 brothers and sisters. Originally there was 8 of us and my mum lost 3. So she had a tough few years. I was meant. I think my mum would have had 10 and my dad. But we moved down. And I think the main reason why we moved down is my dad always knew from a long time that our family, especially the sons, were going to be big lads because my dad his nickname was the original Big Yin. Right. And I know Billy Connolly's got that nickname, but my dad was the Big Yin. And we had shops here, barber shops, called the Big Yin. My dad was a barber. He had many jobs back in the day. So, yeah, we moved down here in 1976. And the reason why I remember it so vividly, it was the fire at the pier. The pier was on fire. And I remember going down, it was the hottest summer for quite a few years. And we couldn't believe it because we come from Glasgow, and 14 degrees is hot out there. It was T-shirt weather. Yeah. And we come down here and it was scorching. And I always remember watching the end of the pier up in flames. And that's why I remember the times. I remember going to school at 4.5 and I had a Scottish accent. And going into school, and my sister was a couple of years older than me because my family are quite different. So my eldest sister, she's 12 years older. Then my brother's 10, my other brother's 8, and then my other sister's nearly 3. So I'm the youngest of 5.
Right. And sorry, Tom, the 3 that your mum lost, was they before you came along?
So there was two before me,
and
1 after me.
Okay.
So, but it's weird because I look back and I think, what would they have become as well? Because I'm quite a spiritual guy. And I always think of that. And my mum, she spoke about it. My dad did, but there was not really, there was no counselling in them days. No. My mum just got up with it. My mum was a tough woman. When I say tough in life, but not tough to us, but tough, black and white,
Yeah.
When you get knocked down, brush yourself down, stand yourself up, shoulders back, move forward. And I think that was the reason why we all become quite well to do. We done well, all of the family, Yeah. And I think that side of it, and then we would have originally been Canadian because my dad actually got his green ticket for barbering because even though my dad was a barber, my dad actually was a scrap man, hence why I'm probably a scrap man, and my other brother got into it. So my dad had a scrap yard, he had a greyhound track and a barber. So he was very, very multi-skilled.
Entrepreneurial.
Over the years he's had loads of business. He had a gnome business. He used to make gnomes.
Gnomes, yeah.
Yeah, gnomes, yeah. I've got a great story about that.
There's a lot of money in gnomes, actually.
Yeah. But he had a gnome factory in the back of one of his shops. And I could tell you a great story about that, a real character story about that, but back in the day. And he also had a second-hand shop. But he was one of them guys, grafter.
Yeah.
And I think he instilled it in all of us. But one of the most important things that my family have always had, when we moved down here, we had nothing. But what we did have was worth more money than anything, and that was love, banter and laughter.
Yeah.
And, you know, we were all instilled in helping each other, and still to this day, my family are my best friends.
Yeah.
You know, so the childhood was very, very good. I had a lot of great memories.
Yeah, it sounds really
Yeah.
idyllic. And I'm sure it had its ups and downs like all childhoods do, and everyone does.
Yeah.
But it sounds like, you know, that bond, that's what I hear coming from that is you had a real tight bond with your family. And
I think that's the Scottish-Irish connection as well, the Celtic roots. And I must say, when I say Celtic, I don't say Celtic, because I'm a Rangers man. Yeah. But I respect every religion. I'm not a religious man, but I've got beliefs. I'm very spiritual. But yeah, we had some good banter.
Do you think that bond is particularly Scottish? I mean, because I know you listened to his podcast, Robert Callender, I had on here, come down the same, you know, he moved into the East End, and his family, he said, was chaotic, but he spoke about that very same bond, that love, that, you know, we've all got each other's back, even though it was chaotic, you know. So
if I believe, if you're Scottish, if you go on a train from London to Scotland and you get a Scottish crowd with you, just see how they treat you, how they get you involved in their conversation, how they portray themselves, and they've always got a bit of something about them in a nice way. Now, I know that obviously Scottish and Irish have got this, I suppose, label of being drinkers and, you know, rowdy and this, that and the other, but I'm telling you now, I couldn't swap, and I wouldn't swap my childhood and the way that I've been brought up in the Scottish-Irish connections, and the way that the bond, as you say, was inbred in me for so many years. And I think I've given that to my children, because we're so close. I mean, I talk to my kids 3-4 times a day, every one of them. And I could be all over the country, which, as you know, and I'll say later that I travel a lot in my industry. And it's like they're never away from me, because that's the way we were. And that's the way we are with my brothers and sisters, and the nieces and the nephews and the great nieces and the great nephews and the grandchildren. You know,
and to be honest, I'm just reflecting on my family, and I find it difficult. You know, I've got my son here, obviously, Joe, who does the filming and that, and my daughter's quite close. My other son's not so close distance wise, but I find it a lot of energy and a lot of effort to keep what you've just explained, which sounds like just so normal and so natural, to kind of keep that close relationship, you know, being in each other's lives on a daily basis, that kind of thing, even if it's just on the phone. I find it quite challenging to do that. And I'm really interested in how you do it, because I know you're a very busy guy as well, you know. It's
the old saying, and I've got a lot of sayings that I've been taught over the years by some really good people, and one that sticks with me is, I want my children to be better than me. And my dad would have been the same, and my mum was the same. Unfortunately, I lost my father at 59. I had a brain tumour. I was 26. I had 2 young sons, 5 and 2, when my dad passed away. He was 59, not an age to go. Had a brain tumour, not a lot they could do about it. We nursed him all the way through. And I think that instilled in me that how much family meant to each other, because we all helped each other. And when you grieve, sometimes some people grieve inwardly. They don't show it, and it comes out as a regression. And other people can show it. I think I had a bit of both. I think the first couple of years I didn't grieve properly because I missed him so much, but I sort of bossed it, and I sort of just sunk myself into work. And those years were probably tough on my ex-wife, which, you know, I still love my ex-wife. I'm not in love with her, but I respect her because she was a good wife, but compatibility in the end wasn't right. But I respect her for that. And also then a couple of years of when my dad passed, we weren't sure of what happened and why he died of this. We thought it was other stuff. I mean, there was talk of mad cow's disease back in the day, Hodgkin's cornea, which is a terrible disease, which affects the sons and the males in your genes. And we were all worried about that, and it turned out to be a very unusual tumour.
Right.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, part of that, because that's really interesting about the grieving, you know, about everyone's different process of grieving. But I think men have got a certain image, and I think that's kind of more difficult. Did you have any kind of sense of like, you know, you had to maintain an outwardly image and you couldn't
100%.
show up as you was?
100%. I only woke at 40. I woke at 40. I've got to be honest with you. I think we bossed it. I've always been caring. I've always had loads of empathy for people. You know, the old saying, Tom will do that, you know, and I'll help anyone out within reason. But I think I woke at 40, and that was partly when I split up. And also I understood that I wanted more than just what I had. And that wasn't being a selfish person, but I woke. And I think that really made me realise that life is so fragile and so to a point where that's what it is. And I think when a big guy leaves the world that was a 20 stone man, and within 6 months all of a sudden he's 10 stone and he's in a bed and he can't even go to the toilet on himself, can't speak, can't communicate, only by eyes, it makes you realise. And you know, as I said, that was a few years before, but I didn't realise it until I was nearly 40. Whether it was a breakdown, I don't know. I didn't ever feel like, oh my God, I'm having a breakdown. Like, I don't know what breakdown feels like, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I had this portrayal of, I'm a big guy, I've got to get on with it, come on. And that might have been the connection of the Scottish-Irish of, come on, you're falling over, what do? Do you cry, or do you just brush yourself down and move on?
Yeah.
And I think that could have been it.
That's a really interesting piece, isn't it? Because I think, you know, growing up, and I grew up in the East End, and I grew up where there was no room for showing any sort of weakness anywhere. Vulnerability was a real something that was taken advantage of.
Yeah.
You know, so
weakness.
Yeah, it was a weakness. Yeah. So it's interesting that, you know, transitioning through into your adult life, and you lost your dad, who was a real big part of things, and then and you know, and yeah, you said you don't know if you had a breakdown, you don't know what a breakdown is, but I think that's kind of quite. I'm pretty sure that there's lots of men out there having a breakdown without actually acknowledging that they're having a breakdown, and just pushing through just on those beliefs that, you know, some of us grew up with that worked, you know, for a certain period of time. But as you say, you know, you come into your 40s, you describe yourself as waking up, and all of a sudden, like, you know, there's other stuff going on that needs to be acknowledged. So I think that's just a really valuable point for me to notice that, and notice that, you know, lots of men out there, they don't even acknowledge that they're in trouble. You know what I mean? They'll just push through, and
some people don't know how to deal with it, and some people are still not woke because of it. I've lost a couple of very good friends not long after I was 40, and that's probably because they didn't know how to deal with situations. It's not always as simple as, you know, I was breaking up with my wife. It was also the fact that I woke up one day feeling I didn't want to be with her. Not because I didn't love her, but I wasn't in love. The compatibility went, and it might have been from years previous, but you sort of shut it off. Come on, you can get through this, it's fine. You have your good and bad days. And they always say, was it the 7-year itch or whatever it is? And you try and redevelop yourself, re-look at things. Is it you, is it them? Because I don't actually feel selfish. I'm not a selfish person. Yeah, I've got my ways, and if I say something, I mean it. But I would always compromise. And I think that in itself was probably something I thought myself, I'm going to leave my kids here, but I'm not going to go far, because I do believe kids are resilient. And as long as you do it the right way and you're always there for them, whether you're with a partner or not, it works. I think the first couple of years was hard, but also I do believe that my kids, as now, and I said earlier, they speak to me 2, 3, 4 times a day.
Yeah.
I must have done something right for them to know that I've always been there for them, and I'll always be there for them.
And also, I think, you know, just the integrity of honouring that, you know, that relationship wasn't functioning anymore for you, probably both of yous maybe, you know, and then stepping into that, because I'd done the same thing, you know, and the same sort of reflection, you know, it was like, for me, it was the hardest choice of my life because of my belief systems, because of where I come from.
Yep.
You know, I come from a dysfunctional, broken home, really, in a lot of ways. So, you know, I had a belief that all costs keep all this together. So,
Yeah.
you know, what I'm saying is, and it ties into this waking up and this what we pass on as well, because, you know, you spoke about what's been passed down to you from your father and the generations before. And I think, you know, now's a really good time that we have to honour ourselves. And, you know, it's not selfishness. I don't think you questioned that. I don't think I'm selfish. But I think there's a real sense of like, actually, you know, we're not just about portraying a role in this life and meeting all those roles and ticking all the boxes, then we check out and it's all over without actually discovering who we are, what we're about. So I think there's a real integrity in when something's come to an end, just really honouring that and going, you know, this has come to an end, and I don't know what it looks like on the other side of this, but, you know, I know my truth is telling me that it's time to move on, and to step into that is a courageous thing. And I had friends telling me when I was doing it, this is really courageous, because, you know, I was walking away from everything.
Yeah.
And so it's just such a valuable point that, you know, as we go through life, and obviously we can, you know, take everyone else's perspective on board, but, you know, to really listen to our deeper truth and then kind of step into that, act on that, and be that. I don't think it's selfish at all. I think that's what people should do in this life, you know?
I think there was definitely both sides. It wasn't just me, but I do feel a little bit of guilt back in the day because I wasn't perfect, but I was never one for messing about or anything like that. When I left, there was no one else involved. So it was quite a big thing. And I think the first couple of years was very ugly. I'm not a shout and hollerer to a point, but when I do, I'd be loud. I was never violent. And we never really argued, you know. But I think you need to move on from it, because you get to a stage where I think, you don't want this. I can't help them. And you actually question yourself. You question yourself thinking, but you've got everything. You've got a nice house, nice lifestyle, financially okay, kids are great. Why do you want to do this? But if I would have stayed, how would I have felt? And that was the thought process in why I did it. And I just know that I don't think it would have been fair on me or her at that time. And now, you know, you look back and you think, how did I get through it? But we did. And we're fine now. I'm still respectful to her. We still get on. We don't talk a lot, but we're there. When it's the children, it's only them. We make sure that they come first. And they're not children no more, really. I mean, my youngest daughter's nearly 21. And you know the background of Lexi. But Lewis and George, 31, come up 32. My other son will be 29 soon. But yeah, they're men. They've got children of their own. Well, my son's got 2. You know, I've got granddad to 2, a boy and a girl, beautiful children. They're mine. They're part of me, you know. And, you know, you move on. So that part of your life, I suppose it does shape your life, because I was with my ex when we was at school, and then we didn't see each other for a year or so, and then we went back together at 17, and then I left at just coming up 40. So, you know, it's a long time.
It's a long time to...
And we built a lot together. You know, hell of a lot together.
And our stories are really similar, because we got together quite young, me and my ex-wife, and built a life. And the same observation of what you just spoke about, of like looking from kind of the outside, or even questioning yourself that, you know, all of these things are in place. It looks like it's the perfect thing. But how do I feel?
Yeah.
and that is just such an important part
Yeah.
of just of being in life and not sacrificing the quality of life, you know, for the external validation or even sometimes that internal validation, because on a deep level, all of them things that I had in place was keeping me okay.
Yeah.
But only to a certain extent, and only because, you know, I was a wounded person and
Yes.
I'd built these beliefs on wounds and they become my beliefs, and then I never questioned that I had wounds, I never questioned that they was beliefs even.
Yeah.
But I found myself not in integrity, you know? And the feeling bit of that is like, that was the real part for me, was like, where am I in all of this?
Yeah.
You know, how about me in all of this? Because I was kind of living a life, and on the external, it's, you know, I had great friends and we done great things and all of that kind of stuff, big business, but how about me in all of this, you know? And that was like, I think it's just such a valuable point. And you summed it up with just, how do I feel? And, you know, it's
How many times you can put a plaster on you?
a deep question,
And the plaster in the end either loses its stickiness or it comes off. What about the heel? When does it heal? Oh no, just put a plaster on it again. Just put a plaster on it again. And that's, to me, is a dangerous thing. And one person very close to me, actually a family member, said to me, you left, it was tough, but you succeeded. And I looked at that person. I said, what do you mean by succeeded? He said, amount of people would have tail between their legs and gone back, and you'd have lived a life that you weren't meant to live, or you didn't want to live, but you'd have done it because you're such a good guy. Because I do believe I'm a good guy. That's not being, and there's no ego in it at all. But I do believe I'm genuine and I care. And I think I've got the biggest heart, because I genuinely would help someone. And I get a lot of feeling from helping some people, even by just having my presence with someone. Sometimes it helps.
Yeah. And I think that's really great and valuable to acknowledge. And you spoke about, you know, that connection when we first met, and I felt that, you know, we was in the Broadway, and there was a couple of your partner with us and another guy who introduced us, and I felt that energy, and I felt that energy from you, and I didn't know you, but I just felt, you know, and I picked up that there's something really, you know, something powerful, something valuable, something genuine, you know, authentic.
I appreciate that.
About
Thank you. And it's a lovely feeling.
And don't get me wrong, I know we've all got our pasts, and I've got a lot of darkness in my past. I'm sure you've got your bits and pieces as well, but that doesn't define who we are in our potential when we actually move into our potential and start allowing ourselves to be who we really are.
Yeah.
You know, that's a whole different ball game as well.
It's so important to be able to be you.
Yeah.
And I think that was what, when I first met you, I portrayed a trust with you quite quickly. And I think my intuition is very good. I did speak earlier on about spiritualness. I've always been spiritual. It's in my family. I have discussed in past times of people talking to me and saying, would you like to join the circle? It's not for me, but I do believe in it. But it's my belief. I wouldn't give an opinion, or I wouldn't push that and preach it to others. Oh, you've got to go this, that, and the other. I'm very lucky. I feel like I've got something that is a gift within, and when I've been in difficult situations, that in itself has helped people by calming them, making them realise that, you know, listen, we're overthinking this. We're overlooking at this. You know, what is the feeling that you want? You know, you want to give something back. So sometimes to listen more was a tool that I've learnt to use better, because we all love a blabber. We all love a chat. But sometimes some people won't tell you everything because you've cut them halfway through. Oh, yeah, my mate done that. It could be quite serious. If you'd have let them finish, you would have helped them more. And that's what I think I've learnt over the last few years.
Yeah, and that is such a valuable tool, as you described it, a valuable tool to learn and to allow people to be where they are and to feel how they feel, and not to try and rescue them or not to try and, you know, make it right for them. And this is a practice that I'm always learning, especially with my current girlfriend, because, you know, sometimes she'll tell me something and then she'll go like, I don't want a solution. You know, I just want you to hear me. You know
that is
what I mean?
so valid. And you know what? I picked up on that right straight away. And it's a weird thing. My partner now, you've met Kelly. She's a wonderful woman. So good to me, so good to my family. My kids love her. Everyone, when you meet her, she's got energy as well. But I had a troubled past with her as well, because I was never wanting to settle down, because I think I always felt a little bit guilty, and I thought, you know what, I can live on my own, I can cook, I can clean. You know, it's something that, for me, I thought, oh, I'll get on with it. But the last time we got back together, I went to see her to say sorry, because I was having some courses through my old firm that was to do with life coaching, and it was to do with, we were going into a corporate world of my trade now, and we got put on these courses, and I became really quite good at using my presence, I suppose. And the guy said to me, you could become a coach. I went, really? He went, you've just got that natural presence. When you walk through the room, you're a big guy, you got the right attitude, you listen. He said, there's a bit of work to be done, but he said, I could really do something. And he said, one thing that I've got to ask you is, like, this person you keep talking about, which was Kelly, you haven't finished with her, because you always bring her up. You always say things. And then I thought about it, and he went, you got to go and say sorry. He said, because as much as you haven't done nothing really bad to her, you've never really given her what she probably wanted or needed, because it was always, where are we going? What are we doing? Is this just a bit of fun? Is it not? And I always remember Kelly saying to me, Tom, you can't fix everyone. And exactly what you just said. You always wanted to try and fix everything. And you can't, because you can only give them advice. It's up to them to fix them. And I think years ago, I used to think, especially after I'd split up, I could fix people. Oh, people are damaged. Oh, I can fix that. But you can't. Because addiction you can't fix, because it's a lifelong addiction. There's lots of things you can't fix. You can only help and give advice and guidance. And it's really interesting, isn't it, when you trace that back, and where does that come from? That need to make it right for everyone. Yeah. You know, that's interesting, isn't it? That's exactly what you said, and that thank you for bringing that up, because it was important that I got that across today. Yeah, no, and it's valuable. I mean, just, you know, as you say, you're a big guy, you're working in a tough industry, you've come from a tough place. It's just so valuable to, you know, be a modern man. Yeah. You know, be a modern man, not like, you know, the stereotype of what we believe men should be like. And you've obviously got, you know, you're a powerful fella, you know what I mean? So you've got all of that side. But to integrate that with this kind of conversation that we're having, I think just speaks so much volume, you know? Some people see it as a weakness by opening up. I don't no more. I used to. I would never tell you my feelings. I would always hold them and put them on my arm and just leave it. Yeah, I'd probably feel it inside, because I'm not a bad guy. But in my industry, which obviously we haven't discussed yet, I'm in the recycling business, scrap metal, and I've been in it a long time. That's what the Sopranos are in, wasn't it? Well, they nicknamed me. Joking, my nickname's Tommy Soprano. Yeah. I'm sure it is. Yeah, I'm not that guy. I'm not that guy. Yeah, I probably am if someone hurt my family, and especially my children. But and that's a part of it as well. And I always own that. I own, you know, I can be very sensitive. Yeah. But, you know, if I had to, you know, do what I had to do, there's no question. I've got that in me as well, you know. Yeah. And that's not like, that's just being whole. That's it's a light switch. Yeah, that's just accepting that, you know, we're a whole person, and we've got light and darkness and different abilities. People that talk, and there's people that do. And I know I can do.
I'm sure you can do.
But it's not something that I would ever be proud of, but it would be done. End of.
Yeah.
No question.
Well, I mean, all jokes aside, I'm sure, you know, having the ability to act is not something that you kind of come up in your industry today. In that sense, you know, it's I'm sure your industry, the metal industry, is completely changed over the years.
It's evolved.
It's evolved, yeah.
I think originally when I was first in the industry, from on and off 40 years of experience, it was a Wild West compared to the corporate world we're in now. I mean, I'm in an industry now that I help to run 32 scrap metal yards and waste recycling yards. And it's a corporate business. I mean, the two owners of my company are both wealth managers. They've been in the city for many years. One has got an experience. They've both got experience in metals, but not in the scrap metal that I'm in. I am a scrap man.
Yeah.
I am a scrap man. I've worked in all aspects of scrap, from merchant to domestic to demolition, factory and industrial. And now I'm in a process now that we are from end of line straight in for recycling.
Right.
And we put 30,000 tonne on a boat.
Yeah.
3-4 times a month. We've got 4 docks. We've got massive shredding facilities. We're getting so much more out of waste now, and recyclability and accountability. Sustainability is the new word. But back in the day, we were getting rid of so many different things, and there were so many different characters. And a lot of the characters, which were really good people, they've gone because the industry changed. 2012, they took cash out of it, which, different feelings at the time. I remember when it happened, it was quite a big whoa. And there was people overnight giving up business.
Yeah.
And they were legit businesses, but they liked having the pound note in their pocket.
I kind of remember that, yeah.
I remember a very big travelling family, a fantastic family. And we were really close, I got on really well with him. And he had a really good business, and he used to pay VAT and everything, but he loved cash. He loved having the cash. And overnight he said, I can't do it no more. I said, but you're legit, you got everything. He went, yeah, it's old values, and they still had their original values of the travelling community, living in a caravan and living in, living off the fat of the land and that. And even though, he had, investments and that, and and they went by the wayside. And it was so sad because generations of scrapmen, and wastemen, and back to the rag and bone man, original rag and bone man. And the history of scrap metal and waste is massive. And I've really enjoyed my 40 years, but now it's totally different. It's data driven. I've got involved in FX, which maybe you've got a little bit of a background from your back. I think you was involved in finance, maybe.
No, not really.
No?
No.
I thought you was. Sorry, but that sort of side. That, and I'm like, and it's like you get involved in loading vessels for it to go over to Africa and India and all over the world.
I think it's really just what's really coming through to me is just a testament of, and you used the word evolution earlier on, of how you've evolved, and because you was like on the ground floor with that stuff.
I had a lorry. I was out on the road. I had 150 garages I used to look after. Back when scrap yards were scrap yards. And let's not beat around the bush. There's some proper characters.
There was some interesting characters. I mean, I visited scrapyards when I was a kid with, lead from somewhere. All that game. So
all of a sudden, the something would pop up and go, oh, I wonder where that come from.
Yeah.
But a lot of that's changed now. It's so difficult. And let's be honest, we're in a world of CCTV, and we're watched constantly now. So a lot of things can't happen like it used to. But some of the stuff that I saw and witnessed over the years. It was very difficult times, so people had to survive, and they'd go out and earn that bit of money. A lot of people don't do that now. Even the guys that come around now, they have to, everything's on a credit card, or at least they get it put in there. They have to have ID and everything. Which, let's be honest, the older I am now, the more comfortable I'm in it is. But in them days, we didn't even think about it. No. You didn't even have to write a receipt. But you know, the police were still involved and they were but yeah, you know. And let's be honest, over the years, if you watch any gangster movie, there was always a scrapyard involved. And we get this tarred by that brush. But, you know, if you met my bosses and you met some of the guys I deal with, third, fourth generation, these are businessmen.
Yeah.
You know, they don't even make that much money out of the scrap now. They actually make more money out of their commercial property they've bought, probably from generational money that they made from the old days. And now they've invested it and they've become, I wouldn't say proper businesses, but they have become businessmen.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the changeover was. And yeah, I still love it. There's still some characters out there, Steve.
Yeah.
You know, and
obviously you know you're someone who definitely has the ability to move in different worlds and different circles and
transition, I call it.
Yeah, transition. But I think that's real, and I kind of relate to that as well because the place that I come from, the world that I come from, was different to how I operate today and what I do. But I think it's getting back to this journey of life and really being who we're meant to be and allowing ourselves to be who we're meant to be. It's so powerful when we can step into these new roles and not just to play a role, but actually to know that this is part of the transition of life, and we're not tied to who we was yesterday or last week or when we was younger, and I think it's just so valuable to evolve, and that's what really come across when you're speaking about how you operate today in that industry. And I know you're dealing with a lot of big stuff on a lot of big levels, and I think it's just a great example of actually even to the kids on the street corner running hustles or whatever, that actually change is not only able to happen, if you really kind of put your energy into something, you can excel at anything, because them sort of skills that come from where you come from and come from where I come from, they're transferable. They're like in any sort of job that you learn and train, and then you can go and do a different thing. Our skills are very transferable, and what I really hear is you've transferred your skills and you've evolved with them, and then you're kind of giving something else out to the world today. But like me, still able to relate to those old ways that things were. They're gone, they're done, they're not for me anymore. Sounds like they're not for you, but
no. So my transition, I was quite lucky because I've been accepted in both worlds, the old scrap way and the new scrap way. Not everyone can do that. There's that crossover. Some people can't do it. They couldn't handle it. I was quite lucky that I was learned enough and I understood my operational metals enough for me to transition over to the data-driven scrap world compared to the old scrap yard. The old saying is you buy it, you process it, you sell it for profit. But it's not as simple as that now, because it's specifics. It's what grade they are, how they're perceived, what you can get away with, what you can't get away with. Years ago, you could throw a load of scrap in a box and sell it as mixed metals. Very hard to do that now, because they want grades, they want it cleaned, they want it processed correctly, they want it a certain size. Now, if you don't do that, you don't get the money that you need. And the margins now that we work on compared to 20 years ago, let alone 30 years ago, are massively minute now compared. So you need more volume. And that in itself, people can't deal with that. I can, because I've schooled myself. And I think that was a lot to do with my next thought process, is my spirituality.
Yeah.
Because I'm a very spiritual guy. My empathy for people are good. And I read people very well. And I believe that's born in me. I'm a spiritual person when it comes to, as I say, I've been approached years ago to become part of the circle, mediumship, which I never did. Was I scared? I don't think so. But I didn't want to open up to it. But I've definitely got something. And that's something from a young age. I remember speaking to a young lad in Glasgow, and we was in tenement buildings. We were 3 stories up. Beautiful buildings, by the way. I don't know if you've ever been to Glasgow. There were these stone-faced buildings and massive sort of stairs, and all the old ladies was cleaning the stairs back in the day, and we'd go in our 3-bedroom flat. It was massive though. Ceilings were high, beautiful. And I remember going to, like, obviously there was 7 of us in the house. I'd go to bed and I'd be in my mum's room, my mum and dad's room, and I'd be sitting there chatting to a young lad, and he'd be in hobnail boots and a pair of shorts and a flat cap, and we'd talking just as if me and them there. And I'd go in the front room. I said, I've just spoke to, and go in there and no one was there. But I believe that spirits come to you as a child. And that's my thought process. But when I say it to some people, they're probably thinking, is he taking something? But it was real to me. And that sort of side, I knew from then that I was slightly different, and I felt that. But that was so real to me when I was a kid. Now, can it be down to the thought process of memory? No, it felt real to me. And over the years, I've always had that feeling, and I've always had a touch of spirituality that was slightly different to a normal person. Some people, you can sit there and they would never believe you. And other people open up to it.
And that's fine, because it's not for everyone to believe.
I'm not one for putting an opinion to someone and making them believe in it.
Absolutely
because
not,
I'm comfortable with what I feel with. But if someone talks to me about it and they chat to me, I usually get a common ground to it quite quickly, because I know, for me, it's real, and to them it's real, and I respect that. And
I think, what you're talking about is really interesting, because I think as human beings, a lot of us would have had, I'm going back generations, maybe many generations, a lot of us would have had a lot more access to, different senses. We talk about the 5 senses today, or the 6 senses today, but a lot of us would have had more access to different senses, and I think that's what it is. I think, I've perceived a lot of stuff in my life, and still do perceive it. And it's not on the mediumship side, but, it's kind of like, I've had fascinating experiences that now I know to be my truth. Like that to be your truth. And it's not like I need to convince anyone, like you don't need to convince anyone. But it's really, actually, it's, when I kind of zoom out, I think, well, what is this? I'm definitely not special and different, but I've just got access to stuff that, maybe other people have lost, or maybe other people have not tuned into. And really interesting you said about as a child, because I met a young woman in Mallorca, just getting an ice cream in an ice cream place. Started chatting to her, and like we kind of had that connection. There was that connection with her on an energy level, and then she started telling me about, she'd been having vivid past life experiences from 3 years old. And it was like, wow, it's a fascinating conversation. We've just gone out to get an ice cream. I don't even know her, and I just, I knew that she was absolutely genuine. She believed exactly, and what the stuff she described was fascinating. But I think at that age, before we've got all of the conditioning of this life coming in and blocking us, and and all of those belief systems and all of that we create, that access there is something that's really, really profound, I think. And it's really interesting that you've maintained that, and you've not just kind of cut it off, you know what I mean?
I think I've added to it.
Yeah.
I think that's what's important. And I think, weirdly, my daughter, who had a very bad experience nearly 5 years ago of a bleed on the brain, and when she collapsed, she was going to the light, and my dad came to her and held her hand and walked with her and said, you're not ready to go. You've got to go back to your dad. And it was as if he was there. And she tells a story, which I think in the future it would be good for you to speak to her, which was amazing. Not just that happening, but the journey from when it happened to the big operation that she had to have, and what she had to go through all that time, and how brave she was, but also how much she got from what happened to her. And it was a terrible time. At 16, she was not even finished school. She was one of the eldest in her year, and she was walking home from school when it happened. And, it makes you realise that there's got to be more than this here. But it's up to you if you're woke for it. I always go back to that word woke. I am woke to it, but it's my belief, and it's whoever wants to believe in it. You can call me silly, whatever you want to do, but it doesn't bother me because I know that I can talk about it and I'm quite comfortable about it, and it felt so real. So there's more to it. But there's something happened to me yesterday which was also, I suppose it was spiritual in a way, and it's a very quick thing that I was driving, and I'm very busy at the moment. We've got a lot going on in our firm, and I was driving back from Bristol, and I had to go to Aldershot, to one of our sites. And I looked down at the gauge, and fuel was getting low, so I thought I'd pull into this garage not far from the site. Pulls in, and whilst I'm filling up, I see it's beautiful. It was a Dodge 1966 white Coronet, and it's got a small Chevy lump in it, and real beautiful car. So anyway, the guy gets out, and he's smiling. And when I see him coming in, smaller guy, your sort of size, Steve. He's coming, he's got a big smile on his face. This didn't think nothing of it, didn't even look at him properly, but I could see him smiling. And the car was pristine. Anyway, I was drawn to him, whether it was spiritual, whatever. And I had to go and say something about that car. Now, I don't know where that comes from, because that happens to me quite a lot, when you're drawn to someone. And I didn't realise straight away, but when he got out and he was filling his car up and he was chatting away to me, he had 2 prosthetic legs and 2 prosthetic arms. And he was standing there filling his car up. And I didn't realise straight away because I was talking about the car. And all of a sudden I was like, and he went, looked at me and smiled. He went, have I shocked you? I went, and I didn't know what to say. And I said, I've got to say I was drawn to you. He went, I felt it. I went, what? He went, yeah. And I said, look, out of interest. Wow. I said, he went, yeah. He said, I said, look, out of interest, are you ex-army? Because we're in Aldershot, so we were expecting it was an IED or whatever, and he was in the army and he got blown up or whatever. And he went, no, it was an illness. He said it was a bit like sepsis, but a lot more involved. And it goes to peripherals of your body, so end of fingers. He's had both his arms off to the elbow, hands, no hands, nothing. And he said both his legs off. I went, wow. He went, no. He said, I'll deal with it. He said, I said, I could tell. I said, you're so happy. He went, yeah. He said, the thing is, Tom, he said, I wanted to live again and live on. I said, but how have you learnt to walk like he said you do? He said, these are my second legs. He said, I wore the other ones out. He said, and I'll tell you another thing as well. He said, I've got a full-time job. I went, what? He went, yes, I'm a gardener. Got my own business. He said, 5 days a week. He said, I'm actually going to a show in my car. And I went, what for? He said, oh, it's for cancer, prostate cancer. And I was totally shocked. And I said, what an amazing guy. He went, thanks. He said, but you don't need to pat me on the back. He said, but I genuinely think you're a good guy. I said, you really have woke me today again. And when I walked away, I got in the car and he'd gone and I'd gone. And I thought to myself, it don't matter how bad a day you got. I haven't really had a bad day, have I really? Because even though he's living and he's got, look at what happened to him. How many people would have not come back from that? How many people would have just given up and sat there and just given up? And he's still going, and he's got a job, and he's got a life, and he's got his big American car that is his hobby. And I had this big beaming smile for the rest of the day.
Yeah,
and that's energy.
Yeah.
And that's what I try and give to other people. I'm not saying I do it all the time, Steve, because you have your good and bad days. But I try and make sure that it's only an hour, because you've got 24 hours in the day. Don't have 24 hours of unhappiness. Try and look at the positivities. You know, grief is a weird feeling. You know, we're always going to go, everyone's going to taste it. Everyone's going to lose people. Everyone's going to have situations that they can't deal with and have to go through it. But there's always a way to get through it.
There is, and I mean, that's such a powerful story that you just spoke about there. And I could visualise that meeting that you had and visualise that person.
I actually feel like crying, but in a happy way.
Yeah.
And I'm not a crier. Yeah, I'll get emotional and I'll hold it back, but sometimes you have to let it go. But I actually felt it.
I can feel the energy of that now, and I feel that I've picked up on that energy of that, and I've got a bit like that. You know, wow, what a beautiful thing to happen. But I suppose that guy, and I don't know him, but what I take from that is that his perception of life is not the same as other people's. You know, he's gone through what he's gone through, and the way that he perceives his life is like, you know, people look at him and they think, oh, poor man got no arms and legs. He's not, I'm a poor man with no arms and legs. he's like, well, actually, I'm here. I'm breathing today.
He was amazing at that. Yeah. This one would look like a, you know, when you pick up your rubbish. He said, look, I feel like I've got a litter hand. And he said, I said, when we had a laugh.
So he's still got his humour as well?
Yeah, he's got it. And also I said to him, do you ever get that portrayed of that film? And he went, what one was that? And he went, don't tell me, Edward Scissorhands. And I laughed because he's a gardener. Because he's got this thing and he's got his prosthetic hand. And it was just beautiful.
Isn't that so interesting about, and it goes to what you've just said about, you know, trying to, you know, if I'm feeling terrible, you can always reset. And I believe that is like, don't get me wrong, I know we all go through darkness, and you just mentioned grief, and we all go through grief, and we're all going to lose people, you know, and these things can be happening at the same time.
Yeah.
You know, you know, if I really tune into my feelings, I could be feeling sadness, I could be feeling joy, I could be feeling happy, all at the same time, you know, and it's not like you got to be one or the other, but, you know, most people are maybe not as tuned in to actually what's going on. But I really love the way that you said that, you know, I can just reset this day. And just by getting perspective, you know, that you met that guy and the perspective you walked away from is like, wow.
Well, I told the story to quite a few people and I put it on LinkedIn because I thought it needed to be told. And the response I got was huge. And everyone felt just what you just said.
Yeah.
Because it happened to me 3 weeks before in a hotel. Similar. And it's, once again, a very quick story. I had a busy day and had a lovely veranda. And it was a lovely hotel, had a gym and all that. Went out, had done the gym, had some dinner. I sat in the veranda overlooking a marina. And this guy come in and I could hear him coming in. And I could tell he had a different accent. And I thought straight away, South African. And anyway, he's gone in, he's got a drink. And he's come out and there was no spaces, but there was a space next to me. And he looked at me and I looked at him and then I looked away and I thought to myself, I feel like I've got to ask him to come and sit with me. Because one, there was no other seats. And two, I felt once again what I just felt there. And he sat with me and he was chatting away. And he told me a story, which once again, my spiritualness must have got out for him to tell me this story. And it was really sad, but also I think it was meant to be said. And he was 7 years old with his brother and his dad and his mum in South Africa, in Durban. They were sitting in the front room just about to have their dinner and they got broken into by a gang. And the dad was held with a gun to his head and the mum was held with a gun to her head. And they said, where's the money? And the dad didn't want to say. And they went, if you don't do this, I'm going to kill your wife in front of your children. And his brother was 9, he was 7. And the dad went, stop it, this, that and the other. It was a fracas. And the other guy shot the woman in the head and killed her in front of the children. And I didn't know what to say. But I had this feeling that he had to say it to me. And I said, have you ever had counselling? Have you ever had regression counselling or counselling? And then he told me about his life, about he was with a woman and he still loved her and he had a child, but he was always at work, he was always doing this, that and the other. And I said to him, you've got to go and get counselling. You've never dealt with this. Anyway, I gave him my number. I said, look, I'm not a counsellor, but I've done some courses on this. You need to go and get looked at. 2 weeks later, I get a call, him on the phone. He'd gone and had 2 sessions. And I was so pleased that I had met that guy and he had that story. And I said to him at the time, I said, have you ever told this story to many people? He went, only 5 or 6 in my life. And I never met that guy, never met him, and I probably will never meet him again.
Yeah.
And he went but it weren't just because of me, he needed to do it. I said to him, look, in my opinion, and that was powerful. Why did he have to tell me? Why did I feel that I had to speak to him? It's weird. I'm not saying I'm, you know, the be all and end all on that.
No, you don't.
That happens,
you don't
but
have to be.
It's an energy.
What I take from that is just so valuable. Is like we're all here in this world, and there's billions of us, and we pass each other, and you know, and sometimes we connect, and sometimes you know you get that intuition that actually something's happening here, and but you know what you're speaking about is recognising that, and allowing that process to happen. And then, there was a meeting and we all bring or take what we need from each other sometimes. And I think these cases happen all the time. And I meet random people and talk to random people. And sometimes it's like I walk away from that conversation, maybe nothing like that, but I just think that was really valuable, And no one else would think it was valuable, but we just had this passing connection in life and we gave each other something, just even, that skill, that
just
tool,
to listen.
that tool of listening. We're on the same page. Just allowing someone to speak and to hear them and to really say, I hear you and maybe I can offer you something, maybe I can't, but just that is so powerful, especially in this world where, we're all moving so fast and, everyone's got all these ideas of how it should be and, we don't listen to ourselves. So to meet someone that you can just go, complete stranger. And it's a powerful thing.
It's a beautiful thing. And I was very lucky and I actually felt so good. I felt so good. And I think that's where the last bit that I wanted to discuss with you was my background in boxing and MMA and what I used to do on the coaching side. Because obviously it's like anything. I boxed. My two sons were very good. My other son was quite good at MMA. My brothers used to box. My brother was very good at judo, exceptional as a junior champion of Scotland. And we was always portrayed to do something like that because it gives you an instilment of growing and teamwork and also individuality feeling. But I used to also do a youth offender program where we'd help kids that were troubled, either they were in trouble or they were going to go in prison, and we were giving them a chance, this, that and the other. And I joined, I'd done a lot of work at the councils and some of the government work, and a lot of them kids had so much energy, but they never got love and they never got anyone saying well done. And one thing I always made sure that I did, I made sure that they realised that I really enjoyed their company and I really enjoyed what they got. And I got so much from that. It was all free. It was all like voluntary, but it was something giving back. Because I weren't an angel as a kid. Most kids weren't, but some kids were worse than others. And, I was a man before I wanted to be. I was 6'3" at 13, but my head was still 13. But I looked like a man. I had stubble and, big fella and obviously in a boxing club and you with older people all the time. But these kids were so misunderstood. And some of them, we turned them around me and my brother, we've done it over 8-9 years. And it was the most rewarding thing. But it was a lot to do with going back to the spirituality, to the feeling, to the listening. Some of these kids had terrible. Some of them, one of them had 10 different homes he lived in. He'd been, molested as a child, and he was coming up to 15, and he'd already done a bit of time, and he had a sawn off. At one time, he got caught, 13, 14 years of age, with two 19-year-old kids. And he got put in that sort of things. Yeah. Wow, 13, 14 years of age, dealing with that. From East London, and whoa. And he was coming down here, and we were teaching him how to box. And I'm thinking, first of all, do we really need to give him this skill? Because would he use it in a different way? But we turned him around.
I think it's just really valuable that you wasn't only giving someone that skill. It's like what you've just said there is, in a way, in that boxing environment, you've been able to nurture someone as well.
It was controlled.
And hold that space.
Everything was controlled. Yeah. I remember him coming in with a can of lager and a cigarette. And you do the old Superman thing. Put the cigarette in your hand and crush the can. What's that about? How are you going to get in that? Oh, I ain't getting in that ring because I want to, I'll do you with this, mate. And whatever, mate. You got to get in there. And you put him in with a kid that would be kind, but also very, very good at what he was good at. So you get a few punches on the nose. You see these kids get annoyed. And they go, right, slow it down, boys. Right, just to the body. And then we'll learn them. And you'd see them grow. Yeah. Massive. And the feeling you get from that, Steve, was, awesome. Because they didn't have nothing.
What springs to mind, really, for me is like what's missing for a lot of kids today. And what you was offering in that thing is a rite of passage. Is like a way to... how do you become a man? How do you really become a man without all of these corrupted ideas of how it should be, And Yeah, it's a beautiful place to leave this podcast. So
Thank you,
really,
Steve.
really enjoyed it.
I've really enjoyed it as well.
It's been amazing. Listen, I mean, how can people connect with you? I'm sure lots of people will want to connect with you.
Be honest with you, Steve, I've never really thought about it, but I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram.
Yeah.
I'm more than happy for people to contact me if they want to discuss things. My Tom Sloan, I'm on there without an E.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'll put your, if you don't mind, when this goes out, I'll put your
details.
Contact details in, not your name and address, but you
know, I'm more than happy to speak to people. If anyone's
in
interested in any stories, as I said to you before, it's the old saying, what goes on tour stays on tour. But I've been lucky enough that I've had a really interesting life, and I've met some amazing people. And I met you, Steve.
Yeah,
and I appreciate that, mate.
Like,
I really mean that. And that connection, I've done a few times in life, but you don't always get the correct connection. So I'm quite lucky that I'm of an age now that I only want to connect to people I want to connect to.
Yeah.
And that's important.
And also to, just put these conversations into the world is a service. And, I get that from you. And that's why I asked you on this podcast, because, I feel that, you're of service to people. You're out there living your life, but, just
I appreciate it.
In
And as I said, humbleness is very, very important to me. But the last saying I'm going to say, and it was my dad's saying, it's good to be nice, but nice to be good.
Yeah. We'll leave it there. Tom,
thank you.
Lots of love, mate. Cheers.
God bless you. Thank you.
Cheers.